Before we dive into the main topic for the day, let me just tell you what's new in the world of ChatGPT, in case you're not aware. So I've been away for a couple of weeks, but just before I went away, 2 weeks ago, they announced ChatGPT agent mode, and that's got the potential to be really powerful. I say potential, in many respects, many things it's not doing as well as we'd like to think it should do, but there are still some really good use cases. So if you want to learn more about ChatGPT agent mode, I will be doing some training on that in the not too distant future. So that came out almost exactly 2 weeks ago. For some reason, they've not put it on their agent mode. There's been a couple of connectors come out. This is where you can now connect up to Canva and Notion, but that's with the Pro account. So it may be that's the $200 a month one. You may not have that. But I think of more interest is just 2 days ago, Tuesday, they launched study mode. And study mode, it says, is available in the free, the plus, the pro, and the Teams plan globally. So this is great if you want to learn stuff. And I'll be doing a session on this fairly soon. But if you want to check it out sooner, you should now have access study mode. So that's the latest in the world of OpenAI, ChatGPT. There's always new stuff across the AI world. For example, a couple of weeks ago, Grok launched Grok 4, and many people said that's probably now the best model, but we can guarantee that OpenAI have something up their sleeves and they're going to, and apparently in the summer, perhaps even August, OpenAI will be releasing ChatGPT 5. It's going so fast, but I'm not going to go through all the announcements of new stuff across the other models. Otherwise, we'll be here for probably 10, 20 minutes because I want to get into the content of today. But anyway, if it's ChatGPT you love, and I know most people in my audience do use ChatGPT, then you certainly might want to check out the study mode as well as the recent ChatGPT agent mode. Right, that's the new stuff. Let's get into today's content. So we're going to look at prompts that are going to save you huge amounts of time. We're going to look at 3. As if you're a regular to my live streams, my sessions, or my webinars, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the idea of creating prompt templates. So let me just quickly explain what I mean by that. I am really into the idea of systemizing as much as possible in our business, automating as much as possible. And so anything we do frequently, where AI can help us, tools like ChatGPT, we can create prompt templates, standard prompts that we can use very easily to do a recurring task. And so I do recommend you start to build out prompt templates, have a place where you have the prompts you use most frequently. And when you have regular recurring tasks, it might be, for example, analyzing financial statements, anything you do frequently that's important, you want to make sure you have a well-crafted prompt, because we know from prompt engineering that the better the prompt, the better the instructions you give, the better the result you'll get. We should think about using a tool like ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or whatever is your preferred LLM as having a conversation with a personal assistant or a team member. When we delegate stuff, we know that if we don't give full instructions, we often get back not quite what we wanted. And then we end up having to go backwards and forwards, ask them to do it again. And very often when we don't get the result we want from a team member, it's our fault because we haven't properly explained it. And it's just the same with tools like ChatGPT. The better that we explain it, the more context, examples that we give, the better the result we'll get first time and the more consistency we'll get in our results. So I'm a big fan in creating good quality prompts using prompt engineering. And in this session, I'm not going to go through the foundations of prompt engineering. That's a different topic, which I've done sessions on before. But what we want to do today is really make it practical. We're going to look at 3 different prompts. One of the things I recommend you do is start to build a library of prompts. Think about the things you do regularly in your firm, in your business. It may be things around financial analysis, strategic planning, marketing, content marketing, pricing, and so on. Think about the recurring tasks that you do and then consider creating standard prompts or prompt templates and then putting them in a library or a prompt library. And the question people then ask is, where would I put them? What would I use as a prompt library? There are many different tools you could use. Essentially, we're talking about a database here. I used to use Trello. Some people use Trello as their prompt library. Some people use Notion. Some people use Airtable as a prompt library. The one that we're going to use today, that I'm going to show from time to time for the prompts that I'll be showing, is one that's a piece of software that I created myself this year that members of the Value Pricing Academy have access to. If you're interested, I have a way for you to get access to it as well. Over the last 18 months, I've written nearly 200 ready-to-use prompts specifically for business owners, particularly for the accounting profession. And so we're going to look at 3 of them, and I'm going to pick 3 that I know you'll love. 3 that will help to illustrate some of the things that you can do, some practical use cases. 3 prompts that will also allow me to illustrate for you some things that you can build into your prompts, some techniques for creating better prompts. And then, of course, we'll use ChatGPT to run those prompts. Let's look at number 1, the first of our 3. I know you'll love this first one. Certainly if you are an accountant, we'll start with a really practical one. If I go to the prompt library, one of the areas that we can look at is we can create prompts for financial data analysis. And so I've written several of these, and one of these might be what you do once a year. You have the end of year financial statements, the profit and loss account, the balance sheet, and it may well be you've got a meeting with a client tomorrow, perhaps even later on today, and you'd like some ideas on what you might talk about in that meeting, perhaps even a report that you can give to the client at the end of the meeting. So if I grab my prompt, all I need to do is select it. When I get into the prompt library, there's a number of things I can do here. I can favorite the prompt or unfavorite it. I've got my instructions for the prompt. I can duplicate it and create a different version of it. And then down here, you can see the prompt itself. And as you'll see, it's a long prompt. Why is it a long prompt? Well, because the better your prompts are, the better the results you'll get, the more consistent the results will be. If it's a really important task and it's one you might do frequently, like an accounting firm owner might review a set of financial statements, then we might as well have a good quality prompt that's going to give us a better result, a more consistent result. And we'll look at some of the components of that prompt in a short while. But really all we need to do, if I just go back a step, is when you have a prompt library, which could be a system like this, it could be Trello, Notion, Airtable, whatever. Once you've got your prompts in a prompt library and well sorted, then it should be really quick to grab them. In this case, I'm looking for financial data analysis. I'll click on it, grab the copy button to copy to the clipboard, and it then confirms it's on my clipboard. I can go to ChatGPT, I can then do Control V, and that's it. That's in about 30 seconds, perhaps even less. There's my prompt inside ChatGPT. I could hit the send button, but that will be a bit premature. That will be too early because there is still some more information we need to give ChatGPT. Prompt templates are really powerful. They're like little systems, but we have to give it a bit of information. For this particular prompt, there are 2 things we need to give it. If we're going to be analyzing financial statements, then we need to give it the numbers. One of the things that we can do with ChatGPT is we can add photos and files. That's the plus icon here. You can either click on that, or much simpler, I tend to just drag the file in. So I have a profit and loss account. It's profit and loss and balance sheet for a business. And there you go. It's just confirmed. It's now got, that's been uploaded into ChatGPT. So it's got all that information. It's a PDF file. It could be an Excel file. I've done this as a PDF. So I've given it the information. I've uploaded it. That's the context there. And then if I go to the very end of my prompt, you should give it other context and sometimes variables. We'll talk about variables in the next prompt. But in this one, I want to give some background information about the business. Otherwise, all ChatGPT has at this stage is just some raw numbers. And yes, it can do a good job of giving us some interpretation of those numbers. But we'll get a better result, better analysis, if we say something about the business. So I'm just going to get rid of this bit here. This is just giving it, this at the end, I've just put in this prompt an example of what to put in, and I'm going to replace it with something I wrote a little bit earlier. I'll copy and paste because it'll just save time. Here is some background information about the business to assist with your analysis, and I've just pasted this little paragraph in here. So I'm using a fictional business. It's one that my good friend Jim Rayner shared with me. And this fictional business is a fully licensed high street fish restaurant in Devon, in a made-up town in the UK. It's a seaside restaurant. It does fresh fish. It's run by 2 owners. and it's got a 5-star rating. So I'm just giving it a bit of information so that we get a more meaningful report afterwards. As a general rule, when we give context or background information, the more information we give ChatGPT, generally the better result we're going to get. Anyway, before I hit send this off now, which is now ready to send, let me just tell you about some of the things in this prompt and some key things to build into your prompts. And the first one is up here, it says, you are a financial accountant with expertise in interpreting and analyzing financial data. So that's the role we want ChatGPT to play. One of the things we know from prompt engineering is that by default, a large language model plays a particular role. In the case of ChatGPT, it's a helpful assistant. And as a helpful assistant, it does a very good job. But we also know that if we asked it to play a different role, we often get better answers. So in this case, asking ChatGPT, telling it it's a financial accountant with skills in interpreting data, the response that we're going to get is the sort of response that we would expect from a financial accountant, which tend to be more detailed, more nuanced, a better response. So that's one of the things that I build into prompts, and you should do as well. Give it a role to play. If you have a prompt where you want it to create some marketing material, for example, then you'll want it to play the role of a marketing expert. Then we've got the task. This is what we want it to do. In this case, to analyze the provided financial statements with the following specific objectives. And what I've done in this particular prompt is I've then told it, what do I want it to do? What do I want it to look at when it analyzes this data? Because I could just leave it at that and let it decide what it will analyze, what information it'll give. But again, the more information we give, the more specific we are, and a key word here is specificity. The more specific we are in our prompts, the better the result, the more consistent the result. I want it to identify any discrepancies. For example, does the balance sheet balance? Little things like that. It may be, in this case, I want it to do some calculations, some analysis of the financial metrics, including calculating some of the most useful ratios for both the current and previous year, and do some comparison of those, and then give us some information about the ratios. I want it to look at cash flow and efficiency assessments, so look at the numbers and see if there's any issues around cash flow, efficiency that I might need to be aware of, that I could talk to the business owner about. I also want it to look at the costs, and are there any significant changes in costs from last year to this year that I might want to have a conversation with the business owner about. Then a growth and risk assessment. What recommendations could I give to the business owner based on all of this analysis? One of the core components of an effective prompt is to use examples, because large language models like ChatGPT are not intelligent. They simply look for patterns. They predict the next word. They look for patterns. So when we give it examples, it will use that and follow it, and it'll guide it to the output. This is really useful, particularly whenever you want to create a standard report. So this one here happens to be a report on the end of year financial statements, but any report that you might want to create to present to a customer, if it's a sort of report that you might create frequently and you want to create a prompt template, then give it an example of a report. So I've done exactly that here. There's an example of how I want to lay the report out. And that's most of the prompt. So when you saw that really long prompt, and it looked a bit scary because it was really long, is because a big part of it, probably 50% or more of the prompt, is the example I've put in there. And then we've got our background information. So that's the prompt. Let's now run it. Once you've got a prompt template in mind, it probably took a matter of 15 seconds to find it in the prompt library, as I showed you, and to copy it to the clipboard. It then took a matter of seconds to put it into ChatGPT and then to give it a bit of information. So I would guess 1 minute. Let's see what we then get from 1 minute's worth of work. So it's currently reading the documents and now it's writing the report. And what it's doing right now is it's opened up a canvas. If you're not aware of Canvas, it's a feature that came out in ChatGPT in November 2024. They brought it out because Claude already had artifacts, so it's similar to that. I love Canvas. It's really powerful, as you can see on the screen. On the left-hand side, you have your chat, and on the right is the output inside a canvas, which then means that you can further edit it, edit your report, and when you're ready, you can copy it and paste it into a Google Doc, a Word doc, whatever you prefer. you can carry on the conversation on the left-hand side. It's building out this report for us. I'm not going to read it all, but I will show you some of the things. We've got our financial analysis report for this particular made-up client. It's what it's done for the first part, discrepancy identification. It's looked at some of the key numbers. The conclusion is that the balance sheet balances accurately, no discrepancies in totals, which is great. And also the figures reconcile accurately. Then we've got some financial metrics analysis, and it's done a little table for us. It's done some ratios. We've got return on assets, return on equity, current ratio, and then the working capital. And it's given us a little interpretation of those numbers, which might be useful. It's done similar with cash flow. It's looked at some of the key numbers there, and there's a conclusion here. It's referenced things like debtors. If you're in the US or Canada, that will be accounts receivable. You can easily change that. In fact, if you are in the US, it'll know that you talk about accounts receivable and inventory rather than stock. If you had a prompt like this, when you feed it an example report, it will then copy the sorts of language that you use for your particular country. Then we've got cost structure review. It's looked at analysis of the different costs, the percentage change in some of the key costs, labor and operating costs, and a conclusion. We've got our growth and risk assessment. And then we've got at the end, we've got 5 recommendations for the business owner. And so it's suggesting that perhaps we should look at tightening liquidity controls, improving operational efficiency, strengthening financial reporting, optimizing the pricing strategy, reviewing capital investment strategy. And it may well be that you are happy with that as a report for the client meeting, which took less than 2 minutes. We could simply hit the copy button and paste that into a document. But there's other things we could do. It might be that you want to make this report for the client. You could edit it, you could change it, you could highlight a section like this, and in Canvas you could ask it to expand on it to make it longer. One of the nice things about Canvas is that we can change little bits of the report. Another thing I really like about doing this sort of analysis is that if you have a meeting with the client later on today or tomorrow, and it's got these recommendations, for example, optimize pricing strategy, not sure what you might talk about with the client on that. So we could just have a follow-up post. For example, I could paste that. I could say, give me some practical suggestions for this, optimize pricing strategy. And if I send that, it's then going to give me some practical ideas for what the client could do in the area of pricing. That's the first example that I wanted to show you. When you create your own similar prompt template for analyzing financial data, you can create an example report that suits your writing style or the elements you want. They're just suggestions of, if it were me, in practice right now, that's the sort of things that I would want to have at my fingertips ready for the meeting with the client, particularly the recommendations, which is really powerful. Let's move on to something different. One of the things I love about prompt templates is that I see them as being little mini systems that allow you to do certain things like produce a financial report really fast in less than 2 minutes. I'm a big fan of systems. I remember way back in 1998 when I was running my sole practitioner business, I came across Michael Gerber and his book, The E-Myth Revisited. And that has such a huge impact on me. In fact, I would recommend that The E-Myth Revisited should be compulsory reading for every business owner because this concept of systems is so powerful. I remember back in those days, I was doing advisory work with clients and I had one particular client ask me to help them systemize their business. And I had no idea where to start because one of the things I do know about systems, and having read the Michael Gerber book back in 1998, is that in any business, there are just so many systems. It's overwhelming. When you think about the things that we do in a business, there's probably over 100 things. There's marketing systems, sales systems, operational systems, and the list goes on. So if you want to systemize your business, if you want to create systems in your business, or perhaps you're an accounting firm and want to do advisory work and help other businesses with systems, then one of the things we can do is use ChatGPT. If I filter to systems and processes, I've written a bunch of standard prompts that can be used to build out systems. The one we'll look at is called Process Map Builder. This prompt will enable you either in your business or if you're doing some advisory work, consulting work for a business, come up with some recommendations of the most important systems to have in a business across all the key functional areas. So as before, I'll start a brand new chat. I will grab this particular prompt, Process Map Builder. It's here. I'll copy it to the clipboard. I will go across to ChatGPT and I'll paste it in. So it takes as long as that when you've got your prompt library set up. What I often do with prompts is make them 99% the same, but we have to tell it about the specific circumstances. In this case, the specific business. Just to make life easy, I use variables in my prompts, and I always put the variables at the end. So I'm just going to fast forward to the end of this prompt, and there's a section that says variables. There's one variable, and that is business website. It's prompting me to put the website. So I'm going to pick a business almost at random. This happens to be a UK restaurant business. I don't know them. I think they're in Northampton in the UK. No idea anything about the business. I'm just picking it as an example for this exercise. So if I was running this business and it was running a little chaotically, I might want to think about some systems to put in place. Perhaps I'm the business owner and I've just read Michael Gerber's book and I've realized I need systems. Or if you're the owner of an accounting firm, wanted to do advisory and this was your client who's in a bit of a mess right now, you might be offering to help them systemize their business. So I'm just going to grab the URL of the website and insert it into my prompts. That gives ChatGPT all the context to now run this prompt. And I could at this stage just simply hit the send button, the black button, and within 2 minutes of starting out this process, it will give me a full set of systems. But I'm not going to do that yet because I'm going to explain a few things about the prompt. So let me just go back to the top. So once again, we start with giving ChatGPT a role to play. In this case, it's not a financial accountant. In this case, you are an SOP specialist skilled in creating comprehensive and clear standard operating procedures to ensure consistency and efficiency in business operations across all functional areas. That's what I want ChatGPT to play the role of, an SOP specialist. Then I'm giving it the task. In this case, the task is to analyze the business and build a detailed process map that identifies the key SOPs required across each core functional area of the business. And you'll notice here in the prompt, we have business website in curly brackets. That's because it's a variable. And as I go through this prompt, you'll see that variable is repeated in more than one place. In step 1, it says review every page of business website using your browsing capability to thoroughly understand the business, its operations, and the industry it operates in. So why do I do variables? It's because what we can do is we can go to the very end and say, in this case, it's the URL for Casmic's restaurant. If we didn't do this, every time I ran this prompt, I'd have to search through for the placeholder and copy and paste it in all the different places. And that can be time consuming. We might miss a few things. And we can save ourselves a huge amount of time and turn these prompts into templates, reusable systems by using variables. And sometimes, as you'll see in the next prompt, we can have lots of variables. Sometimes it might just be one. And let's say you're an accounting firm owner doing advisory work, and you've got a whole bunch of clients that you're helping with systemizing their business. Say 30 clients. They're in probably about 1 hour. You could go and create 30 different process maps because all you have to do is run this prompt 30 times and just each time insert a different client's website. So it's an SOP specialist. We've got the task to analyze the website, and it says you will complete your task by using the example to guide your response. And then what I've done in this particular one, and this is something that you want to consider doing with your prompts, particularly more complex prompts, is you can break down into steps. What we're doing here is called one-shot prompting, where we're creating a prompt that will create the answer we want first time around. As you know, with ChatGPT and all large language models, you can always have follow-up prompts, and that's fine. But if we want to save some time, we can set out the steps in one prompt and do it in one go. So we've got a number of steps. The first step is to review the website we've given it and read every single page using its browsing capability. In other words, I wanted to make sure it understands the business, what it does, what industry it's in, and so on. So let's make sure it's got the context. And then in step 2, identify the core SOPs, the SOPs, for each of the main core functions of any business. I want the top 5. What are the 5 things I should focus on first if I'm building SOPs for this business? And then being very specific, I want a one-sentence description, and I also want it to give me 5 high priority SOPs in each of the core functions, and I've then defined them. In any business, including your business, the main things that you would always do is every business has marketing. They have to attract new leads. There are sales systems that then turn those leads into customers. There's managing the money, the finance systems. Then we have what we do, the operational systems. If we have people, there's human resources systems. We have to give great customer service, so we should have great systems for that. Then increasingly information technology systems, administrative systems, and strategic planning. And then what this prompt does is it gives an example of the output that we're expecting. I've done it just for one of those functions because it looks for patterns. That means we've got some consistency in terms of the response that we will get. That's the prompt that we could run up until this point. If I wasn't talking, it would take about 60 seconds to copy and paste that and to copy and paste the website. And it'll probably take another 10, 20 seconds for the result to come in. In less than 2 minutes, we will get a process map for a business we will shortly see. It takes a few seconds because it's reading the website, as we asked it to do. It's just confirmed a quick overview, which is great. That tells me it understands the business. It's in Bedfordshire. It does actually give you links to where they got the information, which is great because it means we can double check things very easily. Here's our result. In the area of marketing, it's suggesting that this business, the top 5 SOPs or systems or processes that we should focus on is advertising planning, content creation. We should have systems for social media scheduling, market research reviews, and brand consistency. In sales, we should have reservation and booking management. That's important for a restaurant business, lead generation and promotions, CRM and guest preferences, sales pipeline tracking, pricing strategy documentation. Finance, if you're an accountant, this will be obvious, but these are all important for any business to have. Operations, inventory management is really important for a restaurant business. Having things like supplier and procurement systems, so steps to identify, evaluate, and order from suppliers. Quality control checks. There's some great stuff here. And we need to have recruitment and hiring systems, onboarding processes, training and development. Customer service is critically important. Many small businesses do not have customer service systems, and yet customer service is so important. So we should have systems for returns and refunds policy, for getting customer feedback, and so on. And then, of course, we need systems for information technology, admin systems, and strategic planning systems. Every business has many things they do. And it can be overwhelming to know where to start with systemizing. Having ChatGPT create a process map and tell us which are the most important systems to start with will help us prioritize. And if you wanted to, you can have a follow-up prompt here. You could say, of all of these systems, what are the top 3, or rank them in order? So if this is still too overwhelming, picking the top 5, you could then get it to give you a plan. One of the things I've recently done is a complete training program on how to systemize any business with a series of prompts. We could run a standard prompt that evaluates and ranks them using a well-known ranking system. And then what we can do is use ChatGPT to then write the systems and then to write the supporting documentation, such as standard emails, standard letters, standard scripts, checklists, and so on. So this is one of the things I love ChatGPT for. It's great for helping systemize any business, to write SOPs, to create systems. Okay, we've got one more thing I want to show you. Before I do that, I know there's going to be a question about how do I get these prompts? How do I get this prompt library? And I wrote this software earlier in 2025, and I've been writing these prompts. There's nearly 200 prompts specifically for accountants, accounting firm owners, business owners. There are almost 200 now, and I'm writing new ones all the time. You've seen 2 of them. Although this software is normally for Value Pricing Academy members, you can get a copy of it as part of the AI Academy, which is a very small monthly investment. If you're interested in getting access to the prompt library, including the prompts I'm showing you, I'll tell you how to do that in just a few minutes. But let's look at one more prompt. And the third and final one we'll look at is a marketing one. So let's move out of our systems and processes, both marketing and copywriting, but also content creation, because content marketing is arguably the most powerful form of marketing. There are many things that we can do in this area in content creation. This is things like writing blog posts, writing social media posts, doing webinars, doing live streams like this. We could write ebooks. So perhaps you want to create some content, but you need some ideas. You could run a prompt. Anytime you need more ideas, you could run one that I've called content ideas. I'm going to go back to ChatGPT. I'll start a brand new chat and paste this in as before. I always go to the variables first because otherwise I forget. And there's a number of variables this time. As you can see, I've put what you might put for the variables. Let me answer those variables by copying and pasting to save you watching me type. So what does this do? This prompt will come up with ideas for you for content, and you can choose how many you want. I'm going to go for 7 ideas, but you can have 10, 15, 20, however many you want. We'll go for 7 ideas. And specifically, I'll go with a blog post, but that could be a social media campaign. It could be an ebook, webinar, live stream. I'll go with blog posts. And then we've got the subject. What's the subject? So if you're a bookkeeper, it may well be that your blog posts are about bookkeeping. Then what's our target audience? So I'm going to put plumbers, electricians, roofing contractors, and landscape gardeners. What's the sort of topics that you might cover? And it may well be things like essential record keeping, accounting software options, and understanding the data numbers. I've just put in here, my business specializes in helping my target audience streamline their financial record keeping and ensuring they pay the minimum tax they need to. If we go back to the top, we've got our task, and I've told it that I want to create ideas. It's got to be relevant to the audience, and you'll see throughout there's all the variables here. So ensure that each idea directly appeals to target audience, focus on their unique challenges, needs, or interests related to subject. So this one has a lot of variables because it saves a huge amount of time, which means that if you want to do different pieces of content for different types of target audience, it'd be really easy to do. You might want to target tradespeople, but also the medical profession, in which case you could run this prompt twice and just change one of the variables. You could change target audience to doctors and dentists, and it'll come up with another bunch of ideas for bookkeeping in that area, but for a different target audience. So you can see we've got step-by-step exactly what we wanted to do in the prompt, and then we've got the variables. Okay, I'm going to run this one, and let's see what it comes up with. It's taking a few seconds just to think about it, and it should be off. Here we go. 7 creative, impactful blog post ideas on bookkeeping tailored to help plumbers, electricians, roofing contractors, etc. Idea number 1 is the pounds, or the dollars if you're in the US or Canada, the pounds you're leaving on the table, why tradespeople need better bookkeeping. It goes on to talk about what you might put in the blog post and some of the topics that you cover. If that doesn't grab you, what about receipts in the van? Here's a smarter way to track business expenses. Or perhaps QuickBooks versus Xero versus Free Agent. Which accounting app is best for your trade? How to read your numbers without needing a degree in accounting. End of year bookkeeping checklist for trades. What to do now to pay less tax. And then VAT, CIS and your accounts, what every contractor needs to know. And number 7, from dread to done, how one electrician took control of his finances. So there's 7 ideas there for blog posts. And then once you find one or more of those that you like, you might have in your prompt library some other prompts for content marketing that will then help you create the blog post, analyzing financial statements and creating a report, creating a process map for SOPs if you are working with business owners and helping them with systems. In the area of content marketing, you could run that prompt every month or every week and come up with new ideas for your blog posts, for your ebooks. So I'm hoping that you're now seeing the power of having ready to run prompts that save you time and create consistent results. You can see the power of having a prompt library, some form of database that enables you to find your prompts easily. As I said at the start, you could use, there are many tools that you could use for your prompt library. Some people use Trello, some Notion, some Airtable. But if you like the idea of this particular prompt library, I designed it so that you can add your own prompts as well. And you can also copy any prompts that I've written and create a different version of them very quickly. And then you can filter in all sorts of ways to find things. For example, you might want to look at just the prompts that you've written yourself. I've designed it for myself first because I'm using prompts all the time. And so this just makes it so much easier for me to find the specific little prompts or little mini systems that I need. So how can you access it? Well, if you're a Value Pricing Academy member, then you can get hold of the software anytime. If you're not, then one of the things that you might want to do is join the AI Academy. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. Also, put in the comments, what was the best thing you learned? Bye for now.